Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I admire Mr. Straub's brevity. Unfortunately, I have too many points to make to be that brief. There have been a lot of things brought up in this case that just don't fit and that just stink to high heaven, and we've got to address them. I warned you early on that this is an ugly, vicious, even evil case, and we've got to get down in the mud and look at these things. Where to begin? It's kind of difficult to figure it out. Let's start with reasonable doubt. That's as good a place as any. We talked about that during voir dire. I can't tell you what reasonable doubt is. Judge Kaltenbach can't tell you what reasonable doubt is. Mr. Straub, as good as a lawyer as he is, he can't tell you. Mr. Allen can't tell you. But I can tell you what it isn't. I'll repeat myself here. It isn't any doubt. It isn't beyond a shadow of doubt. And reasonable doubt, sure as heck, isn't created by a bunch of lies. By telling story after story, changing with the time, changing with the circumstances. You don't create reasonable doubt that way, with all of those lies. She fell down. Well, Cole didn't have anything to do with it. She has dementia. Well, yeah, Cole did do it. She fell down 4 times. I sneezed on her chest. Pretty magic sneeze that gets through her blouse, gets through her bra, gets through all that clothing, gets through all those layers. That's quite a sneeze. And it was quite a fall, too. A fall, I guess today it had to be multiple falls. So she hurt the back of her head, she hurt this side of her face, she hurt her neck. You've seen the photographs. Quite a fall. The left side of her face. A front view. All her lip too. Hurt the back of her head. And it also hurt her genitalia. That's quite a fall or a combination of falls. Four or 5 days later, this fall, gets her eyes, gets her chin, gets her lip, gets her neck. I'm not sure exactly what she fell on. I suspect she has those multiple contusions because somebody hit her with a dangerous instrument called his fist. Detective Martin talked about these two, Exhibit 4 and Exhibit 3. It's a close-up. Close-up of the left side of Miss Burton's face. This is a close-up of the ring. Mr. Straub talked about these necklaces, and I'll get to those in just a minute, but the important jewelry in this case is this ring. Because you look at that photograph, the mark on her face is kind of a triangle. Kind of like the triangle on the Superman ring, and I hope I'm not the only one that finds it ironic that this defendant is wearing a superhero ring, and that superhero is Superman. That's very ironic. You don't create reasonable doubt by making all these lies. We talked about she fell. All right. Let's talk about Cole didn't have anything to do with it. Then when everybody leaves, and it was interesting, what I asked the defendant about. He had all day, or he had all evening, rather, to sit in the police car, in the sheriff's car. Deputy Pegram, who you talked to, was kind to him, was nice to him. He kept him protected, he kept him away from all this crowd that was kind of upset. Let him smoke in his car, told him to get him to the hospital, so you see about getting him something to drink. He kept asking, am I under arrest, am I under arrest? No, just, we're asking questions right now, we're trying to figure all this out. So after everybody's gone, they let Cole Hoffman go. He says, you know, that fella you let go, he's the one who did it. He's the one who did it. Now let's think about that. First of all, if he rapes and he sexually assaults a 79-year-old woman, he's 39. I'm going to get to those age differences in a little bit too. And then he tries to blame it on, man, you saw Mr. Hoffman up here. I can't diagnose what kind of difficulties he has. But Deputy Pegram told you he had some problems, he had some issues. You can tell from his testimony he did. And what did Cole say? Cole said, I stayed here in the car because that's what they told me to do. I did what they told me to do, and that's why this man got Cole Hoffman to drive him to Miss Burton's house. Because Cole will do what he's told to do. Take me over to his house, drop me off, and stay in the car. That's what he did. It's awfully vicious. Tell a 79-year-old woman, I'm coming over to pray with you, and then you rape her. It's also vicious to then blame it on someone who really is the weakest person you could select. Someone who really couldn't speak up for themselves. And then it's vicious as part of the defense to come up with all these cockamamie ideas. We talked about the sneezing. You know, as magical as that sneeze was, as magical as this fall, these multiple falls that hurt her private parts, then he has to take this case even lower. You know what I'm talking about. He brings his girlfriend in here to talk about his penis. Just made a bad situation even worse. Because, here's another way I can get out of this. I'll talk about my penis. You know, if I did all this stuff, this 79-year-old woman who's fighting for her life, who's screaming and kicking, who's praying to Jesus, she must have saw my penis. And my penis is really unique. It's got all these special marks on it. Now, what his girlfriend testified to, and what he testified to about these stretch marks and something on the head of his penis and a blemish on the side of it, I didn't get a clear picture. I don't want a clear picture. What was going on there? Think about it, folks. I'm sorry Ms. Anderson had to come in and testify about that. And I'm sorry to have to say this, but she's had a much better opportunity to see this man's penis than Ms. Burton did. In the few moments she's being attacked by the defendant. Well, then it wasn't, there was no rape. He couldn't get an erection. Well, and either she fell or, you know, there was no attempted sex. You can't, they're trying to have it both ways. It's kind of incredible. The other thing that's neat, about those shorts. I was trying to help her up. 4 times she fell and I tried to help her up, and her pants ripped. Right in the crotch. I helped an elderly parent with dementia. I had to help her from time to time. I never had to grab her shorts by the crotch. Old pair of shorts, they're not brand spanking new, but there doesn't seem to be a defect with them. You can look at that as the evidence. Just another unique Which way can I go with it now to make it look like I didn't do anything? This idea of dimension, that's another unique thing that they bring up. You heard Ms. Burton testify. Memory problems? Didn't see. She told you about her birthday last week. She told you about her son bringing her an organ. The dementia bit is, well, obviously, he's in trouble. He's had time to think about it. This woman is demented. She's forgetful. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Ms. Burton knew what she was talking about yesterday when she talked to you folks. She knew as much about what she was talking about as any witness I've had on the stand in my 35 years of practice. That is malarkey. That is garbage, that she is demented. Ms. Burton, after he persisted for a year, I'm going to come pray with you. I'm going to come support you. This deal about coming over 5 days earlier, that's another new one. I don't know what to make of that. You know, his watches in the bathroom, it's because he washed his hands 5 days earlier. That's just a little too convenient. Again, reasonable doubt isn't any doubt. It isn't some cockamamie thing that he invents to try to get out of this. Give him a couple more weeks, I'm sure we'll have some interesting other excuses. Talk about the instructions for a little bit. I know I'm going a little long, and I apologize for that, but there's a lot of stuff here to cover. The allegation of first-degree rape. In addition to the mysteries about her seeing his penis, they're arguing that there was no penetration. Well, you got the instructions. The court's done a good job of formulating these. Rape, first degree, engaging in sexual intercourse by forcible compulsion. Sexual intercourse means sexual intercourse in its ordinary sense and includes penetration of the sex organs by one person, by any body part, or a foreign object manipulated by another person by any body part. Ms. Burton said the head of his penis, or his penis, entered the front part of her vagina. And that he didn't have an erection. And that he tried to do it with his fingers. All right? Mr. Strauss says, she must have seen it. Well, here's the thing. She's kicking and screaming, fighting for her life. She's not looking at his penis. But she told you, I've been married for 24 years. She's had children. She's had sex. She knows what's going on. And the man tries to put his penis, whether it's flaccid or whether it's erect, into her genitals. She knows. And she knows that it wasn't erect. And she knows he tried to use his fingers. Sexual intercourse occurs by any body part. Fingers, penis, what have you. Penetration, however slight, emission is not required. Mr. Straub makes a big deal, and I don't blame him for this, about the lack of semen. The instructions say emission is not required. Any penetration is sufficient. So what's any penetration? I was very impressed with Emily Honey yesterday. We're blessed to have someone with her qualifications in this area, working in our emergency rooms to help victims of sexual assault. This is Exhibit 11. She talked about this. This woman took a lot of time with Ms. Burton. She talked to her, she explained things to her, and again, Ms. Burton was able, despite this terrible dementia, to communicate with her and make herself understood with Nurse Honey. I'm grateful that I'm pulling up the diagram as opposed to pictures. That wouldn't necessarily be a good thing for anybody. But here's what Nurse Honey found. Pelvic examination, vulva, abrasion, redness, 11 o'clock, labia minora, tearing to the posterior fourchette, abrasions and bleeding, redness. The labia minora. I'm sure at the beginning of this week you didn't think you were going to be getting an anatomy lesson this week. But those are the inner lips on the outside labia, inside the actual vagina. The fourchette had abrasions. There was blood inside the vaginal canal. And the cervix, up inside the vaginal canal, was red. These were fresh, recent changes and trauma to this 79-year-old woman's genitalia. It happened that day, and it happened because Mr. Pugh tried to put his penis in, put his fingers in, and penetrate, however slightly, however deeply. This doesn't seem slight to me. This woman's genitalia. There was another interesting comment. He wore necklaces. Why weren't those necklaces found in the bathroom? Why wasn't the bathroom a wreck? It's a 39-year-old man fighting a 79-year-old woman. I doubt that that woman was able to grab his necklaces and pull them off. I don't think she even tried to do that. She was trying to kick. That was about all she could do. She's not ready to do an Olympic decathlon. She's independent. She's a tough woman. She's a strong woman, strong-willed. But she's not going to win that fight. She's not going to hurt him. All she can do is kick with her legs and try to keep him off. And the only thing that saved her was Sean Beach. He comes, he pounds on the door. This gentleman stops, and he runs out. That's another interesting story. They just keep coming up. Dude, I was scared, but I was trying to help her. I was trying to help her. I was trying to help her. Did you have your phone? Yeah. You were trying to help her? Yeah, but you had your phone. Yeah. He never called 911 when he was there in the house. He's trying to help her. Why did he call someone? Even before he leaves the house. She falls down, she's bleeding the first time. That would be a good time to use that cell phone. That cell phone wasn't used until he ran out of the house. And Mr. Beach took it from him and made the call. His wife made the call. He said, I'm innocent because I stuck around. He was told to stick around. He didn't do that because he was noble and law-abiding. Mr. Pugh didn't stick around because he's innocent. He stuck around because he was told to. And if you have any other doubts, which you shouldn't, about the big lie that Cole Hoffman was never in that house. Never. This man was hoping that his story about an old woman with dementia, not my words, and a slow friend who couldn't really speak up for himself, that would save the day. She fell. Doesn't explain the penetration. Doesn't explain the injuries to her genitalia. Sneeze. I'm sorry, a sneeze on the front of her shirt when she's wearing her top she's wearing a bra, doesn't explain how his saliva DNA got on her breast. It's ridiculous. Don't let him create reasonable doubt by a bunch of lies. Go back, deliberate, look at the evidence. Again, I agree with Mr. Stroud. What I say, my recollection may be different, but there's a whole lot of stuff here that says this man, on July 20, 2020, raped Wanda Burton. Assaulted her, punched her, threatened her to within an inch of her life, and sexually assaulted her. Go back, deliberate, and find a verdict of guilty. First-degree rape, first-degree assault, and first-degree sexual assault. Thank you.
All right, then, ladies and gentlemen,
of the jury, this is the last chance I have to speak with you. As I promised earlier this afternoon, I've said much of what I have to say, but I have just a few more comments. First of all, in response to what Mr. Straub said, I told you at the beginning of this trial that I respect Mr. Straub. I still do. Still consider him a very fine colleague, and he's done a very fine job under difficult circumstances. But I have a disagreement with him. His client did not respect this process. Not by what he said here in court, not by how he's behaved throughout the entire process, the investigation. Mr. Straub asked for mercy. I get that. And mercy is a good thing. But during voir dire, I asked you to think about something else. I asked you to think about justice. Justice for Wanda Burton. She was living in Paducah at her small house where she lived by herself. She drove herself to get her groceries. She enjoyed her little dog Pedro. She enjoyed going to church, taking care of herself. She had good neighbors. And then, in the matter of just a few minutes, a man who posed as somebody who was a brother in Christ, someone who came to pray with her, came to pray on her. And that's grotesque. And Wanda Burton deserves justice. She no longer lives at that house. She's moved 400 miles east. You always hear Pikeville to Paducah, Paducah to Pikeville. Well, she lives there close to her son now. She moved. She changed life. She still has Pedro. I can't get out of my mind, as much compassion as I have for Miss Burton. How's her little dog reacting to all this? What's going on? Be that as it may. You've got some penalty choices. You've got the choice of returning a sentence on these 3 different felonies. The judge has given you those ranges. If that's the way you want to go, I suggest the maximum. But there's another way you can go. You heard the rest of the story this afternoon with the PFRs, the PFR. Yes, I do suggest that you set the maximum, given what you've heard, and the judge is correct. On the PFO, first you have to make a determination as to whether he's a persistent felon. Found out about 3 felonies. The last one was in 2016, 2017, within 5 years of him committing the crime against Ms. Burton in July 2020. He's got the charges in Elliott County, he's got the charges in Boyle County, he's got the charges in McCracken County. Assaults, wanton endangerment, attempted rape. The conclusion is this: he doesn't get it. He's not going to get it. Not at this point. There's a reason for persistent felon statutes, and he fits it perfectly. He fits the criteria. He's over 21 years of age. He was over 18 when he committed these felonies. He served out his time, and the last one was within 5 years of what he did to Mrs. Burton. And on the persistent felony, Mr. Straub said, have some mercy. Give him something less than life. Folks, given what he has demonstrated, not just today, but previously, he doesn't get it. He's a dangerous man. We need justice. And justice in this case, what's best for the system, what's best for the Commonwealth, is life in prison. Thank you.